So the default is admin in all caps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the first thing I want to point out here is on your registration license keys, you'll see that I have all the license keys. So ASM200 allows you to talk to 100 recorders, and that there would just let you do one screen with 16 images on it. The ASC201 will let your computer talk to 3 monitors. 2 of them can do video, and 1 of them can do a map screen for you. And it's important to remember that on the ASC201, you have 20 cells to divide up, which we're going to be going over in a second. The ASC202 allows you to go to 68 cells. So on that, you have 68 cells that you can divide up, and now you can talk to 6 monitors, 5 of them doing video, and 1 of them doing a map screen. The ASC204 lets you talk to decoders, and I don't have it in here, but the ASC203 will let you talk to 400 recorders. So let's look inside of here first at the system. On the system, what's important is you want to see how you're going to set up what you're going to do. Now, the performance tab is really for the HD300, so that's our older recorder. But under here, under the basic setup, you can see your date, your time format. And since I have all the license, or the 202 license in here, you can see that I actually have the ability to run 4 multi-monitor screens plus the operation screen. So what I was saying before is that you have to pay attention to cells. Here, if I go in here and I make this first screen 4, and then I do 16, 16, 16, and 16, then it's going to allow me to do that when I hit set. If I was to change this to 25, it's going to come back and tell me that I have to have a total of 68 or less. So this is how you basically control bandwidth for how many images that somebody is allowed to see on the screen. So I'll leave it here at 4 and then 16 for each. If you're doing audio, you can turn on your audio. For displaying a window when you open it, this would make it display full frame. I like to leave that off so you have your control window when you first come in. Here on the displaying the images, you can either put it to aspect ratio or scale it if you're doing 4:3. If you scale it, then it is going to stretch the picture to fit. So I like to leave it on aspect ratio. And then I do like to do the high-speed playback for smooth mode on ND400s. So the most important part here is the device manager, which confuses a lot of people because they see this encoders and cameras. You want to remember that the only time you need to add encoders or cameras independently is if those are sitting out in the field by themselves, if they're not attached to a recorder. If they're not attached to a recorder, then you're using the SD card, for example, on the cameras, and this is how you would attach that camera, or if the encoder was doing the recording on the SD card, it'd be the same process. Most people are never going to have that. The decoders would be if you had a decoder somewhere in the system as well. But almost everybody else is going to basically be using the recorder, which also pulls down all of your cameras. So, for example, I'm going to go edit here. If you hit add, it's the same screen. You can see here it's just blank, but I already have my recorder attached. So I'm going to hit edit here. So the first thing you do is type in the IP address of the recorder, and then you want to put in the password and the admin name for what you have on your recorder. Once you do that, you hit start, and then it's going to download the information from the recorder across to you. So now all of the recorder's information is in the copy, and then I just need to title what I want that recorder to be titled. So here I've got it titled on the home NVR. If you were off property or you're trying to push it through the internet on port 80, then here you would want to put this to on, and it would pull all of your recordings from the actual it would pull all of your live streams from the camera directly from the recorder. So this again is another important step. Here on the setup of the cameras, since I'm on the same network as them, you'll see that it's already downloaded all the titles in the cameras. Here I can change what the icons I want them to look like. But what's really important is here, where is the live image source coming from? It can either come from the camera or the recorder. So I like to come from the camera because of this feature right here on the stream type. I have H.264 chosen, and now instead of locking it to a specific stream, I'm telling it to automatically jump between the streams. So on the camera, I can tell it basically stream number one is the one that I'm going to record, which is a higher resolution and a higher bandwidth. And then what I can do is tell the camera on stream number two, use a lower resolution so that when I put up those 68 cameras, I'm not trying to force all that bandwidth through something that I can't see because the images are small anyway. The minute you see something moving on that image, excuse me, and you go to full frame, it drops the other sessions and then it comes back and jumps to the full high-res image so that you're seeing it. So it's keeping the whole network in balance, and this is how we basically distribute the processing and the bandwidth so that you're always in balance, especially on a video card in the PC that's trying to process it. So that's an extremely important step, and then again, it's important to remember that your cameras are going to be attached as soon as you tell it where that recorder is. So now from this point, I've got my recorders loaded in, and basically here I'm going to go through and tell it what I want to do. So user manager, I can turn authentication on, which would mean people would have to log into the copy. I've got mine so it automatically logs into the admin. I can make that password a time password, so every 92 days they'd have to change it, or whatever amount that I want on that. Again, I usually leave that off. By hitting set, I just register to that. So now you see your tabs here. On the administrator setup, this is the admin password and login name, and I've told it basically when this logs in, I want to bring up this group that I already created, which is all cameras on the WAN, or I could tell it, you know, whatever group that I set, that's what I want this particular user to come up with. Any other user, if I'm logging in, here's the levels. So you go through and you just check what they're allowed to do so that you can put people into different levels. And now here's my user setup. So if I put a user in here, I could put test and then test. I can tell them which level I want them to be at. And then I can actually go down to the camera level and the recorder level and deny people what it is I want them to see. So the last thing here would be, again, I can choose what's going to fire up when they look at this copy, and then that would come up from that point. So very easy to add people and tell them what they're allowed to do from that point. So now under cameras, this is where I set up those groups. So if I came in and I added a group in here, I can either just pull a whole NVR across. If I want it to look a specific way, I can choose the cameras by dragging and dropping them into the cells that I want them to be. So it just pulls across and that creates my group. The thing with the groups is you got to remember we limited what a screen is allowed to see. So if you don't have a 64 screen, you don't want to create a 64 group because it's not going to appear in your tree. So that's how you basically go through and set up your groups as you're coming across. And then after you have those groups set up, you can go in and basically create sequences and add what it is you want to have happen on the sequence. So I could say I want to add this step, and then I want to go to, you know, if I've got another quad in here, I want to jump to this set over here. And it basically would just go between these groups that I have set up. So that's your groups and your sequences and how you program them in them. So on the window, you can see, since I've got that other copy or that license loaded in here, now I can tell it how I want the basically multi-screens to fire up. So again, I can create groups and I can just tell those groups that when you fire up multi-screen number 1, live screen number 2, live screen number 3, this is what I want to appear automatically, and then people can change it after the fact. So again, very easy to set up what it is that I want, or if I just wanted it to fire up a sequence, I could fire my sequence up as well. Maps, I can add my maps in, and you'll see that basically on a map, let me go to one that's already loaded so you can see it. It's going to be, edit this. basically a JPEG or a bitmap. So when I go to open, I'm either looking for a JPEG or a bitmap to load up into the file. Once I load it up in the file, it's the same drag and drop. So I can just drag the camera over to where I want it, and then if I want to change the position, I can just change which direction it's faced by doing a right click and then telling it I want to change over to this spot, and then I can drag it anytime that I want. So very easy. If I want to delete it, right click again and then just delete on that at that time. So I hit set here, and that's how you can add your maps in here. And you'll notice at the bottom of everything, it's always telling you how many you can do. So here I've got 100 maps. If I jump back to the device log, you can see I don't have that second code, so it'll allow me to do 100 recorders. So basically, if I had all ND400 code, ND400 recorders, at this point I could do 6,400 cameras. So let's jump down to event. Event is when you're doing motion detections and alarms and they're coming into the copy. This is what you want to happen. So pop-up notification comes up with the little bar on the bottom, tells you where the alarm is. If you want it to buzzer, it could come in and make a noise for you if you want that to go once or if you want it to just keep going. Alarm camera to the direct live window, those again are the live windows. So if you have a copy that allows you to do live windows, you can tell it, I want the alarm to come in and populate the live window, and then you can tell it how many different motions you want to keep popping up the screens to show somebody what's going on. And then the auto reset time is how long you want it to stay up there before it goes away and brings in a new alarm. So you have your choice on that as well. The auto changing of the map is the map would change to where that camera is and then turn it red. So if you want your maps to change with the alarms that are coming in, you would do that as well. Now the error is something different. So on the error, I do leave the pop-up notification on and I do leave the buzzer on. Those come in as yellow, and that's telling you that you have a problem basically with your system. It's something that you need to look at. And I have a video that shows, again, the operation screen, and you can see how all of this takes place. COM is if you're doing FTPs, active or passive across that, proxy addresses, things of this nature. This is basically how your network's going to run, and the same thing with where you're sending your alarm protocol from the cameras. Is it still coming? 1818 is our default, but you could change this if that port number was blocked on your networks. The controller is if you bought a controller from Panasonic and then you want that hard joystick controller to work. This is where you can number your cameras. So you can come in and just do it as a number and it'll automatically do it, or you could come in and assign it to what you want it to be assigned to, and then when you push that number, that's what's going to come up on your copy. And you can also do that with groups and sequences. So you can either auto number those, or you could come in and assign them what number you want to fire off that group or that sequence. Again, this really has to do with the controller. If you don't have a controller, you don't even need to bother with this page. The last part here is maintenance. So it'll always tell you what version you have. This is your application log if you want to bring down alarm logs and things from the recorders and what's going on. Auto delete would let you actually delete logs from it if that's something you desire to do. So from here, you can get reports and pull things down from your recorders as they're put into the tree. So now it shows me what's going on that recorder, and then I can look at access log, event logs, and network logs. So the last part here, which is very important as well, is the save or load. So if I knew I was going to change this firmware version from 1.22 to something more current, then what I can do is I can just save or back up the file that I have now. I'm not going to do that. I can save that, put it on my desktop, and then what I can do is go to my add remove programs, remove the old copy of ASM200, load the new one in, and then I can come back when the copy fires up and just load back in all my settings, and I don't have to do any programming at all. So if I come to here and I open this up, you'll see that it's just going to fire through a load. It's going to shut the copy down, and then all of those settings that I have as my backup are saved right there. So very quick and easy to go through and do a firmware upgrade if you want to do it at that point. You can see here I'm completed on my backup. It closes the copy, and then it's going to fire it back up in case passwords changed or anything of that nature. So again, be careful if you changed your passwords and you load something in there, then you need to know that password of what you've backed up. So the last part, which I showed you before, is your registration keys. So you can add keys at any time. If I had a new key, I can just put that key in here, and then it will open up those the functions that I want the copy to actually be able to do. So that is a basic overview of how to set up the ASM200. Again, make sure you pay attention to loading devices correctly so that you're not doubling up on bandwidth. Make sure that you pay attention particular to where you're pulling your streams from. You do want to try to pull them from the camera so you can take advantage of controlling bandwidth, especially through PCs and video cards. And the other way to control bandwidth is by telling people how many cameras they can connect to at any one given time. So this is all within your control. And I hope that helps, and thank you very much.